And welcome to the Hot Seat of College Football Show. I am Trent, your host, as today we're going to be going over a little post-spring top 25 for college football. Let's talk about it. Alright, so before we get into this video, please hit the subscribe button. We got to 300 a week ago. We're at 315, trying to get to 400 and really 500 before the beginning of the upcoming season of college football. So if you want to help us, that would be amazing. Also, if you enjoyed today's show, please hit the like button before you leave. And also, let me know down in the comments, who do you guys think should be the #1 team in the country? Ever since NIL has been introduced into college football, I mean, really, it's always been, you know, for the past couple of decades, it's, okay, this team's #1. We have not had a clear #1 team in college football. You look at last year, Texas was #1. They didn't even make the playoff. Indiana turned out to be #1. Ohio State was #1 for the entire season. You can make case that Miami was supposed to be #1, or LSU, or Penn State at certain times, or Oregon. The year before, it was Ohio State, it's Georgia, it's Texas, it's Oregon, it was Alabama for a game until they lost to Vanderbilt. But now coming into this year, there still, again, is not a defined #1 team. You know, a lot of people say, you know, is it just Ohio State, or is it Oregon? Is it Georgia? Is it Texas again? And it's been one of the most interesting debates. I made a top 10 like a month or two ago, but I want to do a full-on post-spring top 25. So I want to hop over to the graphic. This is my college football way too early top 25. The template for the graphic I did not make. I got it from ESPN, but I kind of put my own little style a little bit on top of it. But this is my top 25. We'll go from 1. Actually, do we want to go 1 to 25, or do we want to go 25 to 1? Let's go 1 to 25. Let's go 1 to 25. So starting off at #1, I have Ohio State. Obviously, they were the reigning champs last year. Then they were the #1 team for the entire season. They lose only to the 2 national title teams, and those 2 teams lose a lot, and Ohio State brings back a lot on offense and replaces a lot of NFL top 10 talent with a lot of high status portal guys and veterans from the portal from other teams. Obviously, you're returning guys like Julian saying he's the only returning Heisman finalist. If you ask me personally, I don't think being a Heisman finalist means anything. I mean, Diego Pavia was the runner-up in the Heisman. He went undrafted. Max Duggan was a Heisman runner-up, and he couldn't really even survive in the UFL. I mean, so I don't really think Heisman finalists mean anything half the time, just because it's the most outstanding, not the best. And Julian, I don't think is the best. I mean, he was the only remaining Heisman finalist. I do not think he's the best player. I think guys like, Jeremiah Smith didn't go to the ceremony. And Jeremiah Smith is much better than Julian Sand. And if you haven't watched my top 10 quarterback video, you should go watch it. I will give you a little hint. Julian Sand is not my #1 quarterback. And I think he's my 5th best player total in my top 10 players in college football. You should also go watch that video. We have a ton of videos on like ranking the best teams, programs, coaches, players, positions. So you should definitely go watch those videos. But obviously, you're returning Jeremiah Smith. You're returning the best defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, and a top 2, maybe even the best head coach in the country with Ryan Day. And how the season ended last year, I think they're kind of coming for blood. In Jeremiah's last year, this is the year to win him a Heisman. You're returning, again, the Heisman finalist from last year, the only remaining Heisman finalist. Julian Sand set a regular season passing record for the most accurate passer in college football history throughout the regular season, and fell just short in those 2 playoff games because of how bad the offensive line played. Speaking of the offensive line, they're bringing everyone back. Hopefully Ian Moore can start out at that left tackle. He will probably be a 1st, 2nd, 3rd round left tackle in the NFL draft when he goes in a year or 2. But I have him at #1. At 2, and a team that, man, people are sleeping on because of they lost their quarterback. That is Miami. And honestly, I mean, Miami returned their best running back, their best receiver. They lost their best 2 tackles, and then they also lost their 2 best edge rushers. So they're losing a lot on the outside of the trenches, but they're returning a lot in the interior. Plus Damon Wilson, the transfer from Missouri who came from Georgia, I think will be a great addition for them. Mario Cristobal always has his team and player hitting hard. I mean, like, if you did not watch him in the playoffs against Ole Miss in Indiana, they are constantly hitting people even when they don't need to, which causes penalties, but it also, hurts the other team and their quarterback and their receivers. But I think getting Darian Mensah from Duke, he might be your Heisman winner. Darian Mensah had like 34 touchdowns and 6 interceptions at Duke last year, and they had, 5 losses because of how bad that defense was with Manny Diaz. But if you don't remember, Duke won the ACC, and if the playoff rules this year happened last year, Duke would have made the playoff over James Madison. Now it's all Power 4 conference champions make it, no matter how many losses they have. So Duke would have made the playoff last year as a 5-loss team. At 3, I have Georgia, and I think what I've said earlier, if you've heard my schedule, some of my couple schedule predictions, which we're going to be doing more of, plus my early playoff bracket prediction, I think Georgia and Notre Dame might be the only remaining undefeated teams at the end of the regular season heading into conference championship weekend. So I'm talking about like heading after week 13, it's like Notre Dame 1, Georgia 2, or Georgia 1, Notre Dame 2. And I don't think people are ready for that. I don't think people are expecting Georgia to have like a big, like Georgia's back type of season. But I definitely think they can with obviously returning Gunnar Stockton. You are losing a lot at receiver, and you're losing Oscar Delp, but you're returning Drew Bobo. And I think that defense needs another year of locking in. And I just trust Kirby Smart. He's won the SEC 2 years in a row. Do I think he's going to win it 3 years in a row? Probably not. But at least for talent-wise, I think Georgia is the best team in the SEC. At 4, I have Notre Dame. I actually just made a video earlier today talking about my Notre Dame spring preview. You should go watch that video, or spring game reaction preview. And I love what CJ Carr is. I think he's great. The receiver room is so deep. They're as deep as Ohio State. Maybe the top end's not as good as Ohio State, but they are just as deep, maybe even more deep than Ohio State at receiver. Obviously, they're bringing in 2 Buckeyes, former Buckeyes, and Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham. Quincy Porter did not play in the spring game. Mylan Graham looked all right. He had some couple of good deep throws, but he had trouble catching contested balls. But you're replacing Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but I think with Anaya Williams, I think he'll be an okay replacement, but hopefully the offense and the receivers and the defense can step up where it doesn't need to be the Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price show. At 5, in a team that if you watched my way too early playoff prediction like months and months, not the one I just made, the one about like months and months ago, I actually had Oregon winning the national title. People had them number 1, number 2. I'm a little bit lower on them. I just also reacted to their spring game. My only thing with them is just Dante Moore. I have, in the spring game at least, I have not seen that step up. I want to see him step up. How the season ended last year was not right. I mean, Ohio State didn't get blown up by Indiana. Miami didn't get blown up by Indiana. I know Bama did too, but Bama wasn't very great. They were good. They weren't like great last year. And Oregon was supposed to be one of those great teams. And they got beat up kind of at home, and then they got destroyed because of what Dante Moore did to them. Pick 6 first play of the game. So I got them at 5, and this is their national title year. They'll need to step up to beat some of these teams like Ohio State and Indiana in the Big Ten. But at 6, I have Texas. Obviously, Texas, they were the number 1 team in the preseason last year. They lost to Ohio State, lost to Florida, and then lost to Georgia, and that was kind of how their season ended. They did beat Michigan at the end of the year, so good for them. But Arch Manning really struggled at the beginning of the year. People said, well, Arch Manning was really good at the end of last year. No, he wasn't. Because, hold up. Let me bring up Texas's schedule from 25, because I'm actually tired of this. This is such bullshit. Texas was not great last year. Hold on. Let me bring up Arch Manning, and we'll bring up his stats from his last 6 games. Because, so they lose to Ohio State. He plays terrible against San Jose State and UTEP and Sam Houston, and against Florida. Against Oklahoma, he played okay. He was 21 for 27 for only 166 passing yards. Had to go into overtime against Kentucky and Mississippi State. And even in the Mississippi State game where he went for 346 yards, he was 29 for 46 and a 63% completion rate. So it wasn't even great on the completion percentage. Played well against Vanderbilt. And then against Georgia, 27 for 43, 251, 62. percent completion rate, a touchdown, and a pick. Against Arkansas, he put up 389 and 4 touchdowns against a horrible team, but went 18 of 30. That is a 60% completion rate. And then against A&M, who supposedly played, and they lost against Georgia, barely beat Vanderbilt. They were blowing out Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt came back, but Vanderbilt wasn't that great that last year. Oklahoma did not really have their quarterback. He didn't beat Ohio State, didn't beat Florida. And against A&M, he went 14 of 29 for 48% completion rate. And even against Michigan, 61%, 21 of 31, only 221. He played fine. The fact that people think that he is he's gonna be the Heisman favorite this year, have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm not saying he couldn't win the Heisman, because all they care about is stats. They don't care about how the players actually look and how actually good they are, but he is not deserving of a Heisman. When you watch him throw deep, he overthrows. He can never throw on target ever. He has poor decision makings. He holds on the ball too long. He scrambles too often when he doesn't need to. He doesn't know how to step up into the pocket well. And I think Texas is going to be carried by the talent on the defense with Colin Simmons and Cam Coleman. Arch Manning is not going to be the MVP for this team, and Sark has been getting outcoached by almost every single coach. Sark has been getting outcoached game after game after game. So, I don't know. At 7, I got Indiana. And my thing with Indiana is they have a great coach and they have 2 great coordinators. They're losing a lot. They have Carter Smith. That's great for them. But they're losing Lewis Moore, Aiden Fisher, Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper, Keelan Black, Roman Hemby. They are losing a ton. Fernando Mendoza. They're losing a ton. They're losing all the parts of the team that were good, really except Carter Smith and Charlie Becker. So they're bringing in Nick Marsh, and I like Nick Marsh. I don't love Nick Marsh. I think Josh Hoover, Josh Hoover's is a Big 12 quarterback. If you've looked at the past couple of seasons of where all the best players are coming from, they all came from the Pac-12. Isn't that weird? We're talking about Fernando Mendoza came from the Pac-12. Cam Ward came from the Pac-12. Shedeur and Travis Hunter were in the Pac-12 before they went to the Big 12. You look at Fernando Mendoza came from Cal. You look at the year before, the couple years before, Caleb Williams came from the Pac-12. Bo Nix, Pac-12. Michael Penix, Pac-12. Even who was the guy who won it in 23? Who won it in 23? Jaden Daniels came from the Pac-12 in Arizona State. All of the best talent is coming from the Pac-12, not the Big 12. There's, Dan Pierre, I guess he's still in the Big 12. I don't know. I'm going to be honest. Max Duggan was the best guy, and Will Howard were the best guys that came from the Big 12, and they weren't like Heisman. I love Will Howard. His jersey's right here, but that wasn't elite talent. I don't think Josh Hoover's a Big 12 quarterback. He's not a Big 10 quarterback. He's not a Big 10 quarterback. I don't really believe in Josh Hoover. And look, anytime I talk about Indiana fans get so pissed, and they literally they want to start a fist fight with me whenever I criticize them because I don't believe in their quarterback. But I got him at 7 just because of the coaching. At 8, a team from the playoff last year, I got A&M. And Texas A&M had a very disappointing end of the season, starting off 11-0. Marcel Reed was a Heisman finalist. You were 3rd in the country. You survived against South Carolina. You were going to go to the SEC championship. And 2 years in a row, you were going to go to the SEC championship if you beat Texas. You don't beat Texas, and then you lose to USC the year before. And then last year you lose to Miami in the playoffs. I know Miami went to the national championship, but watch that game. Miami did not play well in that game, neither did A&M. And yes, there was wind, but A&M could not really do anything that game. And how Marcel Reed ended the game at the goal line with the interception, just not a way you want to end. But I love Mike Elko. I think Isaiah Horton from Alabama is a good add. I think Mario Craver can step up in the role that Casey Concepcion had. And I know you're losing Cassius Howe. And what's the running back? Oh my God, what's the A&M running back you had last year? You just got drafted. I can't think of it. But I do like a lot of what they have. So I got them at 8. At 9, in a team that I'm a little bit projecting because they have not really shown that they should be this high, but just because of how talented they are this year, I got USC. Even though you're losing Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane, you have a running game. The defense is playing better, and Jada Mayava is in his 2.5 year starting. I think he started the end of the year over Miller Moss. So he has 2.5 years under his. This is gonna be. He has a year and a half under his belt. This is gonna be his second full year of starting, but second. This is his 20th game starting. So when you look at NFL quarterbacks that go to the Super Bowl, they usually need to have a 30 game start minimum, and Jada Mayava is on his way to that. I'm not saying Jada Mayava is going to win the Super Bowl, but I think after this year, he's going to be very productive going to the NFL because of how many starts he has. At 10, I got Oklahoma. Another team I'm reaching on a little bit, Lincoln Riley's other team, Lincoln Riley's ex. And really, Lincoln Riley is just Big Ten Lane Kiffin. And they both were at USC. Lincoln Riley is just Big Ten Lane Kiffin. But I love John Mateer. I want to make sure, is Satania coming back at Oklahoma? Because I don't think so, but he might be. Yeah, okay, he is returning. Okay, I was wrong. I thought he was, then I convinced myself he wasn't. He is coming back. That's your wide receiver one. That's big for you. You are losing R. Mason Thomas, but you have David Stone on that defensive line. And, this team overachieved with a brutal schedule last year. And now the schedule it's not easy. It's much easier. UTEP at Michigan, New Mexico. At Michigan's tough. Then at Georgia, bye week, Texas. So, man, that first month and a half is tough. But then, Kentucky at Mississippi State, South Carolina at Florida, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is not going to be great this year. You can see how low they are on my list. So, you get a little bit of a break. Then Texas A&M, which will be tough. And then at Missouri. So, it'll be tough. It'll be tough at the beginning and the end, but that middle of the schedule is easy, so you'll have time to figure out what you need to check before you head into that Ole Miss and Texas A&M and Missouri game, that 3-game stretch. But so yeah, I got them at 10, at 11, and I originally had Bama over Oklahoma, and I decided to change it just because John Mateer is a senior and Keelan Russell is a true sophomore. And I had Alabama, just reacted to their spring game. You should go watch that video, and I liked what I saw from Keelan Russell. It's just, we know this, unless you're actually Trevor Lawrence, first year starting quarterbacks don't win championships and they struggle. Julian Sand was kind of an exemption, but even he struggled in the biggest games. Look, they didn't do much against Texas. You look in the Michigan game, he struggled early. In the Indiana and Miami game, he really, really struggled. So you just have to be a multi-year starter to win big games. And John Mateer saying if he can stay healthy, and this is for the preseason, can stay healthy. This is not including schedules either, because if this was including schedules, I would not have Ohio State won. Next year, just wait 1 year, let Keelan Russell start under the schedule. He has tough games with Georgia, at Tennessee, Florida State, South Carolina, A&M, at LSU, at Vanderbilt, and then Auburn at home. So he's going to have a lot of really hard road tests. And this is saying that Keelan Russell is going to start. It could be Austin Mack. I think Austin Mack is DeBoer's guy. I think that's DeBoer's recruit. But I think Keelan Russell, he was the second quarterback in the country below Bryce Underwood and ahead of Julian Sand. Or Tavian St. Clair. So I got them at 11. At 12, I got BYU. Obviously, I've said this before, and in the live stream when I was reacting to ESPN's version of this list, 12 is just the perfect role for the top Big 12 team, just because it's a 12-team playoff. It's the last team in. A Big 12 team that has to get in. It's the last slot. Decide them in at 12. And you can look at 13. It's I can't believe you have BYU over LSU. The LSU's an SEC team. It's the SEC's been getting their ass beat in bowl games by Big 12 teams. LSU lost to was it Houston last year? So it's I know LSU's better, but we've seen this time and time again where it's the SEC team, who seems a million times better than the Big 12 team, gets beat by the Big 12 team. So I got BYU over LSU, and look, I got LSU at 13. LSU gets hyped up every year. I'm not falling for it again. I want to see it before I believe it. And I like what Lane Kiffin can do, but it's year one. Remember year one at Ole Miss and year one at, year one was great at Tennessee, but year one at USC. So he needs a year or two to kind of settle in, kind of get this talent. And also, we don't know what Sam Leavitt's going to be. He has had injury problems before. We'll see if he can stay healthy. At 14, I got Oklahoma State. And you're probably well, oh my God, Texas Tech has fallen. This is including the Brendan Source, but what we think is going to be suspended. Texas Tech would have been at 10, 11, or 12, but They fell. They don't have a quarterback now. I believe in Will Hamilton. We'll talk about Texas Tech in a second. But with Drew Messemaker, I think he could be a Heisman favorite if he can get to the playoff and have like a Max Duggan type of year. If they can go like, man, if they could beat Oregon at home, I mean, whoa. Launch Oklahoma into the stratosphere. And then at 15, we have the scumbags from up north. Look, Bryce Underwood's terrible. He's freaking god-awful. But I've said this about Michigan before. Plus, they got Kyle Whittingham. And Kyle Whittingham is a pretty clutch coach. I mean, watch the Kansas State game against Utah last year. He's a pretty clutch coach. But it pisses me off. Michigan just always finds a way to win a few more games than they should. And look, they have a tough schedule. Do I think they're going to be ranked by the end of the year? Probably not. Maybe. But it would be in that like mid to late 20s is where I think they would be ranked. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could beat Oklahoma at home. When you play against Michigan, you play really stubborn. Ohio State plays stubborn when they play Michigan. Oklahoma plays stubborn. Bama plays stubborn. Really, really stubborn when they play Michigan. I guess Texas has them figured out. Texas freaking walks up and down the field on Michigan. But they're going to beat a couple teams. You're like, whoa, they beat that team? They beat Penn State. They beat Indiana. They beat Ohio State. They beat Oklahoma. So that's why I got them in the top 15. And actually, right outside of the top 15, I have Penn State. Remember, they were supposed to be the number 1 team last year. They were number 2 over Ohio State, which was laughable. Franklin gets fired a month and a half in, goes to Virginia Tech. Penn State goes 6-6, beats Clemson, goes 7-6. Now with Matt Campbell. And I get they're bringing a lot of guys from Iowa State that are veteran, but also I watched Iowa State a ton last year. I predicted a ton of their games, and they failed me every single week. There's always a couple teams like Oklahoma. Whenever I pick Oklahoma to lose, they win. Whenever I picked Iowa State to win, they lose. When I pick them to lose, they win. Iowa State pissed me off so much last year. And Rocco Beck, whose father, Anthony Beck, head coach of the Orlando Storm, used to be St. Louis Battlehawks in the UFL. Rocco Beck, his son, was not great last year. I like Rocco Beck. I think he's good. I think Matt Campbell at Iowa State gets the most out of his players, but Rocco Beck isn't very clutch. And in this game, you have an easy schedule, but you're going to have to win 2 out of the 4 against USC, at Michigan, Minnesota, and at Washington. You're going to have to win 2 of those 4. So he's going to have to be clutch on the road, at Michigan or USC at home. But a lot of their hard games are at home, but at Michigan, at Washington is going to be tough. So they have to win half of those to go 10-2 and potentially get in. It's going to be very important where they are, because if they're 10-2 or 9-3, they don't start the season ranked, they're not getting in. If they start the season ranked 11th or 12th and they go 10-2, they might get in. So at 17, I got Ole Miss, and I get they have Trinidad back. Trinidad had a magical season last year. Don't think he's going to be able to replicate what he had last year, especially at the end against Mississippi State, Georgia, and even sometimes in that Miami game. I know they lost. He was pretty good in that Miami game. My only thing is, yes, you have Kejuan Lacey, and Kejuan Lacey had crazy stats because he had crazy carries. If you look at his average yards per run, wasn't great. It looked amazing against Miami. He had those giant runs. Wasn't consistent with it. Wasn't as explosive at the times where you needed him to be, especially sometimes in that playoff game. I wasn't really that explosive against Georgia. I get he had the most amount of yards, most amount of touchdowns, most amount of receptions, but it's because he had it's because he had the most amount of carries. That's why when you give a guy the ball 300, 400 times a year, which would never ever happen, but if you did, he's going to have the most yards because you spam him over and over again. The reason why Trinidad didn't have great touchdown stats was because a lot of his touchdowns were on the ground and they were given to Kejuan Lacey. Kejuan Lacey had 24 touchdowns last year. So I don't think he's the best back. I think he had the best stats because they spammed him. But you're losing Stribling and you're losing Wallace, your best 2 receivers, and you're losing a lot of your coaching staff, your strength and conditioning. I mean, I get you have Pete Golding, who beat Georgia and almost beat Miami to go to the national title against Indiana, but it's I don't know. I don't can Pete Golding handle an entire year plus an entire offseason as the head coach. I don't really think so. So I think Trinidad can carry them to being ranked. I'm just not very high on them. Plus, they lost a ton of players that went to LSU. At 18, another team that I'm reaching on is South Carolina. They were good 2 years ago. Last year, disappointing, but they're very talented this year with Nick Harbor, Dylan Stewart, and Lenora Sellers. I think Dylan Stewart, Lenora Sellers, could all be top 15 picks in the NFL if they played very well this year. And I think Nick Harbor could be a top 4-round pick just because of how talented and athletic he is. Not a great receiver, but I mean, he had the 99 speed in college football. That's what we all know him by. At 19, I have Texas Tech, incredibly talented roster, but they don't have a quarterback now. Don't know what you want me to say. I might have a video coming out tonight, later tonight, or tomorrow, talking more in depth about the Soares BBN. I made a short about it, but I want to go more in depth about it. At 20, I got Cal. This is going to be my ACC runner-up. I just want to make sure they're the second highest ACC team. Yeah, so they're going to be my ACC runner-up, and I like Sagab Toure a lot. Remember, this team lost 50 players in the portal last year, and they overachieved. I mean, they really overachieved with a 5-star true freshman quarterback now in year 2. I'm excited to see what Cal can do. At 21, I got Louisville. Obviously, you got Isaac Brown, who's my number 1 running back in the country. You also have Lincoln Keynotes, the transfer from Ohio State. 6'3", 225, can windmill, dunk. He's super athletic, can run, and I'm so excited to watch Louisville. Louisville is my favorite team in the ACC, up there with Georgia Tech, so I'm super excited to see it. My grandpa was a Louisville fan, born and raised in Kentucky. At 22, I got my third ACC team in a row. That is Pitt. I think Narduzzi, their coach, is good. The roster's not great, but they have an amazing quarterback. Not in Eli Holstein anymore, but in, how do you pronounce it? Mason Heinchel. And I think he's incredible. I'm very surprised he's not transferred out of Pitt. At 23, got Kansas State. They lost their coach, and I'm over-projecting with Kansas State a ton. If you're asking me if I could redo this graphic, which I made like 30 minutes ago, I would kick Kansas State out. And actually, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to kick Kansas State out. We're going to slide UCLA up to 23. I think UCLA is going to go 8-4 this year. I think UCLA is going to really, really overachieve. At 24, I'll put Illinois. They're quarterback proof. Even though I don't like Bielema that much, he spit on Ohio State players when he was at freaking Wisconsin. He's quarterback proof. He made Luke Altmaier look really, really good last year. I got him at 24. And then when we kick Kansas State out, we put UCLA at 23, Illinois at 24. I would actually put Washington. I would probably side Washington at 25. They're losing Coleman and they're losing Boston, but they have DeMond Williams back. And I think Jed Fish is a decent coach. So that's my top 25. Going over again, Ohio State 1, Miami 2, Georgia 3, Notre Dame 4, Oregon 5, Texas 6, Indiana 7, A&M 8, USC 9, Oklahoma 10, Bama 11, BYU 12, LSU 13, Oklahoma State 14, Michigan 15, Penn State 16, Ole Miss 17, South Carolina 18, Texas Tech 19, Cal 20, Louisville 21, Pitt 22. We're going to slide up UCLA at 23, Illinois 24, and Washington 25. And then we'll probably slide Kansas State out 26, kick them off the list. So that is my top 25. I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the like button if you are still here. Also, remember, we're going to be doing early previews for more games. We did one for Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, and Ohio State, Indiana. But we're going to be doing early previews for all the big games and schedule predictions for all the biggest, best teams in college football heading into next year. So make sure you hit the notification bell so you can get notified when I drop those videos over the past month or the next month or two. But I hope you guys all enjoyed today's video. I might have the Soares BBN video coming out later tonight. But again, that's all I have for you guys tonight. I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow. And as always, thank you.